Well, good morning, Business 20 students. This is our 5th week of our class here at Norco College, looking at one chapter, Chapter 9, on payroll and payroll taxes. That's what we'll be looking at for week 5 in our business mathematics course. And this is where we're going to be basically laying a foundation for you to complete the case study that you also started in module number 2, which is the bride, the groom, and the tax man. So you need to know how to figure out federal income tax withholdings as well as Medicare and Social Security. So you're gonna be working through a paycheck and figuring out how much taxes are they going to pay, what is going to be the final outcome of a paycheck. You all know if you work that your paycheck gets taxed heavily here in California, especially. But you're going to be figuring out, well, how do I know what I'm going to have to actually pay in taxes? And that's where you'll be figuring that out. And again, this ties into your case study as well as the particular content, quiz, etc. from this week's course. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our class here in Canvas. Here we are, and I'm going to scroll down, and we are in module number 2 for a few more weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. This is our second week in module number 2. So here we are in week number 4. Last week you had chapter 8 on markups and markdowns. Now chapter 9 is completely different than what we've been looking at thus far, but we'll be coming back to very similar content when it comes to simple interest next week. But for now, we're going to just take a little break from all that. We're going to get into payroll taxes, but keep in mind that you had looked at markups and markdowns. As you know, when you purchased an item at discount, whether it be wholesale or through a retailer or manufacturer, they gave you a discount, trade discount, or cash discount. We looked at that in chapter 7. Now you need to mark those items up, and that's what you looked at last week, marking up items so that you can make a profit. And there's different ways of marking things up, marking things down, considering perishable items, things like that. And now as we move into this week, again, we're looking at payroll and payroll taxes. So you also will be figuring out, some paychecks based off of piecework, paychecks based off of hourly and salary, and as well as commissions, things like that. So you will have a few problems in that area. But remember, we have a read me first every week. Make sure you read that and mark it as done. Then we have a help Sienna, which the help Sienna is the same thing. Read it and mark it as done. This kind of puts everything in the context of her health and fitness business. You have a study page on chapter 9 that includes the PowerPoint and a video of me working through the tables, and I'm going to give you a caution here in a minute about the tables. Then they have tips to solving word problems, and then there's a formula sheet for chapter 8 and 9. All right, I had to let my cat out. Anyway, so the formula sheet has some tables in it, table 9.1, table 9.2, and in these tables is what you're going to be using to solve the problems for chapter 9 when it comes to payroll deductions. So there's chapter 8 is in here as well, and you should have already downloaded this, but here's the first one, and it's called the percentage method of payroll taxes. So you need to figure out how many withholdings there were. So if it's one withholding, it would be a 1. It would be the first one. If it's weekly, it'd be that much. So each one of these represents one withholding. So if you have 5 withholdings, it would be 5 times that if they got paid weekly. Anyway, that's the amount of money that you don't have to pay taxes on. That's why we call it a withholding. And so you figure out how much do I not pay tax on, and then you take that out of your paycheck gross amount. Then that leads you down to the next table, table 9.2, and this one here has your payroll periods as well as whether you're single or married. So you need to figure out how often are they paid, are they single, and then you figure out whatever's remaining after you've deducted the withholding amount, whatever taxable income is left from your paycheck, it's going to fall into one of these categories, and you're going to figure out how much tax you pay based off of these conditions here. So that's pretty much a quick overview. I go way more in detail in the video that's in the study page, but I wanted to show you that these tables here are going to be different, listen, than the ones that are in your book, because this is the 8th edition of the book, and the ones in your book is the 9th edition. I did these earlier. A lot of the questions are going to be using the 8th edition because they're still questions from that edition of the book. So I would recommend that you solve all of the problems using the tables here in the formula sheet. That's going to be your best bet. However, if you do happen to work them out with the tables from the book. It's not a complete loss. The only problem is the quiz questions may end up, you may not have the right selection. But on all the other assignments, I know the difference between the ninth edition and the eighth edition tables. That's because every year these tables change based off of government policy. So in this case, you want to use the eighth edition just so that you get all the answers right. It doesn't matter which edition you use as long as you know how to do the process. So, but to get the answers correct, you want to use the ones here in the formula sheet. And you can download that from modules. You can view it right here in modules. It's up to you. It's the same formula sheet this week as it was last week. So keep that in mind. We had it here, and then again, we have it again here. And that brings you then to the coursework. So you are going to have a check-in assignment. This is just like we've been doing. You're going to download a worksheet. You're going to work out the problems. Not all of them are the percentage method for payroll deduction. They're also going to be piecework and commission and things like that. There's also going to be one on Medicare and and Social Security, things like that. Once you've worked them all out on the worksheet, then go ahead and go into the check-in assignment and pull the drop-down menus down and pick your answer that you got. And then you submit that. You also need to upload your hard copy in order for you to get full credit for the assignment. Then there is the case study that you started last week. That's going to now be changed to continue case study. So let me change that as we're waiting here. And this case study again is definitely using that percentage method of payroll. So in other words, you do need to use the tables that I showed you from the formula sheet to solve this problem. And it's basically looking at Michael Smith and how he was single and he got taxed so much. Now he's married with two more dependents, so four dependents altogether. So how much did his paycheck change by getting married and now having more dependents? So that's what you're kind of figuring out in that problem. So that's that. And then finally, of course, you have a quiz on the same chapter, chapter 9 right here. So, and you can take that up to 3 times. So this is the work that you should be working on. This should actually be, yeah, 10 points for that. So 10 points for the quiz. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. Just these 3 assignments, but make sure you review all of chapter 9. I do give you on the study page the sections of the book that you should be looking at. Work through the videos, work through the study page, and then get started on your coursework. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can meet with me during my office hour. I am changing my office hour. I'm no longer going to be in on Monday, but I am going to be in there on Tuesday afternoon from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock before my evening class. So you can meet me in my office. I also am available online on Thursdays if you need to meet and go over any problems or if you have any questions. I also have a bookings link on the office hours page as well on the home page of our class in Canvas. It's the little picture of a guy sitting behind the desk. You can click that. I believe there's a booking links in there. You can set a time that works for you by going there. You can pick a time and then it'll alert me and let me know if when you're available, and then I can either respond yes or ask you to reschedule. But either way, we can meet anytime that works for you. So have a great week, and you will see me on another video next week.